Welcome back, folks, to my Forbidden Fruit series. And this is a CYA fair use, blah blah. Thank you, Brian, so much. I was able to get propane and get through this last 100-something degree heat spell. You are awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you, Jonah. Thank you. I was able to stock up on coffee. I'm getting sugar, all of that fun stuff, including much needed supplies to last me until this next gig comes up. So thank you guys so much. Okay, this video is on a hidden warning in some hidden rules in Revelation. All right. And this is a Bible I'm using. It's a 1903 huge display family Bible. It's really pretty. Okay. I'm doing a video on the first two rules later. I wanted to get this one out first because it was just so cool. But the stuff I'm going to talk about, do not fear. Rule number 2, do not fear. All right, because this is some scary stuff to really consider when you really get into how big and how infiltrated this is. It can freak you the hell out. You ever seen that movie Erin Brockovich where she's telling the lady about the chemicals in the water and then it just has to sink in a minute and then she's like, "Kids, get out of the pool." I mean, you might end up just like, "What?" But there's something you can do about it. There's always something you can do about it. So don't fear. But some of this stuff is just pretty incredible. And I was kind of blown away. And so I wanted to share this first. Okay. And this is me, my maid. We'll come to that later. Now, most people think of the book of Revelations and they think about the four horsemen and the mark of the beast and all that. I'm concentrating on the chapters 2 and 3, the ones that are the letters to the churches. And this little gem here is repeated a few times throughout these chapters. And it says, "He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches." What that means is that you look at the spirit of what's being said there, not the literal meaning of it. Because the Bible is a riddle book and a code book, and we're talking metaphors, allegory, dark sayings, parables, codes. You have to read between the lines. That's what fascinates me this so much. So what it's saying is, hey folks, you the reader, read between the lines in these letters to the churches, is what that's saying. So let's do that because this is so interesting. All right, the version of this book I'm using is the 1611 King James version. But again, this book is so old it doesn't really have an official date, so it's like 1903, I think, is when it was published. All right, so rule number 3 is do not eat food sacrificed to idols. You wouldn't think much of that, but just hang in there. It's a big time hidden warning. All right, so Revelation 2:14. But I have a few things against thee, because thou hast there them that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed unto idols. Okay, and I'm not going to get into the fornication, but this here, this is what I would call a bombshell. People don't realize it because they don't know what this means. And I don't blame them because they've kept it secret. Most people think an idol is a statue of a god, so they're thinking the food sacrificed to idols could be something like this. Or maybe there's a whole bunch of crazy people in cults that are doing rituals when they slaughter the animals for the meat we eat. Who knows? That could be possible too. But it's way more than that. This is so bad. This is unbelievably bad. So, we're going to break this down. So I have a few things against thee because thou hast there among them. That means you've got people among you. And a church can be like a group of people, okay? Specifically, I think this is probably talking about the United States because this dynamic here is probably the worst in our country. As to other countries, it's infiltrated too, but there are a lot of countries that are better than we are. I think we're probably the worst when it comes to this happening to our people. Okay, so what in the world's the doctrine of Balaam? Who's this Balaam dude? All right, I looked him up and he's a prophet, he's a sorcerer. He specialized in curses, poisons. He was basically a scientist. Okay, he was a Baal worshiper, which means that he probably also might have ritualistically snuffed the life of other Homo sapiens out in rituals. Who knows? And he wasn't nice to animals. Okay, I don't like this character. All right, but let's go into what a sorcerer is. In Revelation, pharmakeia is another word for sorcery or witchcraft. And Strong's G5331 defines it as the use or administering of drugs, poisoning, sorcery, magical arts, often found in connection with idolatry and fostered by it. Now, we're going to get into idolatry in a minute, but it doesn't mean the statue of a god. And then also the deceptions and seductions of idolatry, which are persuasion tactics and propaganda, things like that. That would be considered witchcraft and sorcery, like neurolinguistic programming. And it's also how they use all these different psychological studies to learn how to make people want to do the things that they want them to do. Fear tactics, that would be considered witchcraft and sorcery. Okay, but also genetic modification. All right, and we are in the days of Noah. I really do believe that because what they did back then, I think it's a repeating cycle. That is like their playbook or something. It's unbelievable. Anyhow, genetic modification absolutely did exist in ancient times. Technology is not new. If you look at what we find all around us, all the ancient artifacts, they were higher tech than we are. If anything, I would say that we've devolved technologically. Okay, and we have to have the tech to recognize it in their stuff. Because, like, if we don't know what a DNA spiral looks like, we couldn't recognize it in their artifacts and art and depictions. So it's a matter of a learning curve. But when you start looking at all of this with the eye on technology, it changes things. Now, it gets worse, though. It gets worse. So, genetic modification. I'll show you why I think they had it back then and it was an issue. Genesis, the very beginning of Genesis. We have different types of creation in Genesis. There's like multiple creations, but the original creation, it was the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind. So we have Genesis, and in the original creation, things were created a slightly different way. And if it was created by the waters or the ground, it was after its kind. All right, I find that very interesting. And God created the great whales and every living creature that moveth, with which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. What's this after his kind? After their kind. And again, it repeats it so many times. Why would it be repeated so many times in the very first page of Genesis if there wasn't things that existed that weren't after their kind? Okay? So you got to look at what's not being said here. But here's another one. The book of Yasher was taken out of the Bible. It used to be part of the canon, but it was taken out. It was mentioned in Joshua 10:13 and 2 Samuel 1:18. This book of Yasher was mentioned. Now get this. And their judges and rulers went to the daughters of men and took their wives by force from their husbands according to their choice. And the sons of men in those days took from the cattle of the earth, the beasts of the field, and the fowls of the air, and taught the mixture of animals of one species with the other. I'm going to repeat that. They taught the mixture of animals of one species with the other, in order therewith to provoke the Lord. And God saw the whole earth, and it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted its ways upon earth, all men and all animals. So the flood happened because of genetic engineering and interference and changing things from their kind. It's not because of the sins of mankind. That was probably a big part of it, but this is how it was corrupt. It was all genetically corrupt. All right, anyhow, back to where we were. So, we know who Balaam is. And we know the kind of stuff that he did. He was a scientist and he had high tech, and he casted a stumbling block. What is that? That is something that causes material ruin, causes spiritual downfall, basically a trap. It's something harmful that causes injury and death, a covert weapon, or sabotage. So it's a covert warfare tactic here. That's what a stumbling block is. To eat things, that also means to consume. It doesn't necessarily mean only to eat things, as in food. It could mean using a soap or taking a certain medicine, things like that, things you partake of, even a body of knowledge. You could be considered eating up something. The word to eat, you got to be a little more flexible with the meaning of that word. So, sacrificed, what does that mean? It means it was harmed, it was diminished, something was removed from it. You know, like I'm going to sacrifice my kidney for my sister. That kind of thing. It's something that takes away, kind of in a harmful way sometimes. And then idols. Oh, whoa, wait until you hear this. This is so cool. Idols, what does that mean? Most people think it means a statue. Okay, a statue of a god. No, no. In the New Testament, it means something like a phantom or a likeness or the appearance of something. Something that's fake, a vain thing, something that's nothing, a counterfeit is what I would call it. And something that's worthless, it's worth nothing. Imitations, that would fall under that term of idol. But in the Old Testament, idol also was used as basically a piece of dung, that they would call that an idol, a false god. But here's the interesting stuff: an image that is a cultic mask, a symbol of the divine or a symbol of a household. Think about that. So, I wonder if family coats of arms could be considered an idol. The image, a symbol of a cult, I think would qualify as well. Well, what about a brand? Wouldn't a brand be considered an idol? I mean, what about all these brands? Don't people idolize these brands and consider them safe to eat? And they only like certain brands? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. What about these brands? Okay. Or what about these brands? So, all our major corporations, I think, are idols. And also, they're making our food into idols. All right, so basically, this passage means that they are covertly sabotaging and converting into harmful things and making worthless imitations out of and putting poisons in our food, our water, and our products. And that probably includes psychological poison in our media. That's what this means. It's unbelievable. And then here's this. Revelations 18:23. For thy merchants were the powerful men of the earth, for by thy pharmakeia were all nations deceived. Now, in different versions of the Bible, it'll say by thy sorcery or by thy craft or witchcraft. The merchants with their brands. Interesting. I mean, okay, but could it be that bad? I mean, because no, they give us healthy things. They're here to be good to the people. Okay. Well, here's my question to you: how many times do these things have to happen before it becomes a pattern? Okay, and I'll give you an example. Just oops. Sorry, there's this bad stuff in the baby foods, and oops, sorry, there's this bad stuff in baby powder, and oops, sorry, you know, listen to this. Almost a third had levels high enough to raise health concerns of the herbs and spices you buy in the flipping grocery store. That's pretty damn bad. All right, oops. You know, there's stuff that causes what you're putting on your sunscreen to protect you against, you know. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And then here's another one. There's a known toxin unfit for human consumption and candy, a popular candy that people buy and children eat. And oh, and, this one's one of my favorites, right? Compounds used to make industrial tubing and rubber gloves are found in 80% of these fast food chain foods. Okay, and these dangerous chemicals are linked to asthma, infertility, and smaller testicles. Oh my, okay. Now, this is one of my favorites, though. All right. So, we've had this germophobia pandemonium going on in the last few years, right? So, everybody's freaking out and going out and getting the sanitizer and using it everywhere, right? 75 different brands of hand sanitizer. Oops, sorry, that's got something in it that'll cause a slow death. I mean, just how many times? And here's the other thing, this wood alcohol that they're saying was in it. I remember hearing that they used it back in the day during Prohibition to poison things that people drank on purpose. Okay? Our officials, our governed, as you might say, mental people. These people that we're supposed to blindly trust, governments kill more of their own people than die in foreign wars or anything else. You need to look up history. And you need to look up the trends that are happening in this world now because we are in a cycle. And this is bad, folks. Our medical people establishment, that's these dudes. Is curing patients a sustainable business model? And we're supposed to trust these guys, right? Are they actually doing any good? Well, the mistakes they make back in 2016, third leading cause of kicking the bucket in this country. Third leading cause. And then these guys say that the snake oils that they peddle are the fourth leading cause. Yeah, let's trust these guys because they've always been correct about things in the past, right? They wouldn't do anything, Yeah, get your kids some DDT coated wallpaper. They do not have a good track record at all. These people have criminal records in a lot of these corporations. This is bad. This is not a new thing. And the corruption is unbelievable. Now, they are excellent at surgeries. There have been a lot of good things about allopathic medicine. But when it comes to disease, no, because they're anti-illness, they're not pro-health. They don't really understand disease, and it's become corrupt. And as far as I'm concerned, these creatures, this organization, this beast of an organization, is cause number one of kicking the bucket in this country. And the reason why I say that is because they're the ones that made it legal for all of these chemicals to be put in our food supply that cause the first two leading causes of kicking the bucket, which is cancer and heart disease. So as far as I'm concerned, number one and number two is these guys, okay? Because they are on the take. They are on the take, and they are controlled by the brand icons. Now you guys getting it? It's bad. Because, yeah, if it was just an accident, it wouldn't be this consistent. They'd err on the side of being healthy at least once, but they have done nothing to improve the health of people at all. It's actually being sabotaged. And our food is the biggest part of that. And it's in everything. It's so big and it's so bad. If you guys have ever heard of the Mike Health Ranger Adams, interesting take on things. I respect his work. Today, more than 95% of all chronic disease is caused by food choice, toxic food ingredients, nutritional deficiencies, and a lack of physical exercise. That is actually very true. I learned that decades ago when I started studying health. And I'm not a doctor. This is not official medical advice. I don't have the right to be your boss. I'm trying to share my knowledge and what I do myself. Anyhow, but yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. And it's funny, the same corporations that make the stuff sell the medicines, make the medicines to treat it, to treat the harm they do. And I love this quote. People are fed by the food industry, which pays no attention to health, and are treated by the health industry, which pays no attention to food. And I've always wanted to know, why do doctors ignore or avoid addressing the causes of disease? You don't see fundraisers for the cause, to find causes and stop the causes. And then not to mention the abominations that they create, and they put in like 80-90% of our food. It's all corrupt. It's all corrupt. I consider that an abomination. And then don't get me started on the mass medication without consent crap that they put in our water. I read a study once that if you're a pregnant woman and you drink water with this crap in it, it can lower your kid's IQ up to 22 points. This is bad, bad stuff, and it needs to be taken out of our water. Period. This is criminal here. And it's in so many of our products, these very dangerous things. And it makes me mad. But fabric softener is one of the worst, folks. If you use fabric softener sheets, you need to get that crap out of your house. That stuff is bad. You don't even want to be breathing in the smell. That stuff is so bad. Feminine products, ladies. The things that you put in certain places to take care of certain times of the month, they off gas. Really bad stuff. Okay, so those top two things I just said are some of the worst harmful chemicals that you can come across in your home. Cleaning products are another really bad one. But if you want fabric softener, take a sponge, get it wet, put some hair conditioner in it, and kind of work it into the sponge and throw that in the dryer. Okay, so just use a wet sponge with hair conditioner. You don't need to buy that crap. And don't be breathing in that. This stuff's so bad for you, but it is in everything. It's not just by accident. Okay, so we know that they allow a lot of stuff that they shouldn't put in there, but there's a deliberate agenda here. It's pretty bad. Look at the differences between the ingredients of the two versions. It's evil. And the food in this country, the food in the United States is banned in so many other countries because of all this. And then the way that we grow our food is also just horrid. Absolutely horrid. Don't get me started on the cell cultures that they use for flavoring. I don't want to eat any of that. They probably put it as natural flavoring too. But I don't want to eat any of that. I do not want to consume, don't want to eat the blood, which I do consider eating a cell from something eating the blood. And the Bible says so many times, don't eat the blood, don't eat the blood. You ever wonder why? The life is in the blood. What if that means the DNA and all the cellular memory that we may have? And there are psychiatrists that specialize in patients that have had organ transplants and blood transfusions because of this phenomenon here. Some reports show direct links between the receiver's personality change and the donor's personality, such as changes in eating habits and choices, music, sexual orientation, etc. And people don't realize they boycott the most recent serum that they've been trying to push on people because of the types of cells that they use, but they've been using those for a long time. And they are in a lot of different serums that are given to people from these snake oil salesmen. And I wonder if that could be contributing to people having feelings like they're in the wrong body, or feelings that they like a different gender. I think that these cells, possibly from a donor that is the opposite sex of them, being injected into people, might actually be having some kind of psychological effect because the life is in the blood. I wonder about that. I'm trying to shift my diet to only things that have healing properties. I call it the according to its kind diet, and I'll go into that in a minute. But I feel so wonderful when I know that everything I'm eating has nothing that causes illness in it and is only medicinal, because true food is medicinal. Think about Revelation 22:2, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. All right, this is mentioned a couple times in the Bible. But people live in the city. They live in Babylon. This is not something that everybody's going to be able to do. They just don't want to give up their lifestyle. They're too lazy. They don't want to be responsible for their own survival or their own life. They want others to take care of them. And there's a lot of these sheeple. There's a whole lot of these sheeple. The picture on the right reminds me of a certain relative that doesn't give a crap if it's the food that they're eating that's causing their disease. They'll just take the pharmaceutical and they'll just keep eating the bad stuff. They just literally don't care. They won't do anything. And that to me is absolutely evil. It's anti life, which is anti health, and which is evil. What you can do, folks, if you live in an apartment and you don't have room for a garden, grow some herbs. Grow flippin' dandelions. You would not believe how medicinal dandelions are. They can be food, they can be medicine. They are used to treat diabetes and a lot of other things. They can make wine. You can make wine with the dandelion flowers. You can make a coffee substitute with dandelion roots. So if you don't think you're gardeners, well then just try weeds first. I mean, how hard can it be to grow weeds? But if you have like a house, try growing, if you're in a hot climate, try growing moringa or amaranth. These are two crops that can be used as landscaping, and they provide a lot of nutrients, unbelievable amount of nutrients that can help you get through things to come, especially since our food supply is compromised. They are just, anyhow, they are gifts from the divine, these plants. Sprout whatever you can. If you cook beans, sprout the beans first for a day or two until they have an itty bitty tail and then cook them. It multiplies the nutrients. You can sprout so many different things. So sprout your food if you can, because it turns your regular beans and lentils and things like that, it can turn them into superfoods. Okay, so that's another thing that is actually mentioned in the Bible, is to sprout your grains and seeds and beans. And be proactive. You have to be proactive. You can't just treat symptoms. You need to stop things at the cause. Okay? Find the cause, stop the cause. That's really the only way to stop disease and illness. And it is deliberate. It is absolutely deliberate, because right now the brand icon people, corporations, they want a monopoly. They are controlling everything, basically. It's like a corporatocracy, I think, is what that's called. But it's just so insidious. It's evil because they've been consolidating power. All these corporations have just been consolidating power and gobbling each other up for decades until very few powerful people control all of these different companies. And they're usually in certain families that would have a certain icon or logo that makes them icons. We could solve all of our problems right now if we started growing hemp. If they created grants to give to some of these companies that have been forced to go bankrupt, to start farming hemp and making things out of hemp. We have a cotton shortage, for fabrics. Hemp can do that. We have a paper shortage because there's a lumber shortage. Hemp can do both. We have a fuel and energy shortage. They can make biofuel out of hemp. Wow. And these monopolies do not want something infringing on their business, so they're not going to let this be legal. You want something to take the place of chemotherapy, possibly. They don't want that. They so many households are bankrupt because of medical bills, because of things like chemotherapy. When they made a natural, God-given herb illegal, it's just so evil. It's so evil. but so I mean, I'm speechless. It's just so huge and so evil. So, sow seeds. Sow seeds, folks. Grow your own medicinal herbs. Grow some dandelions, or get a skill. Teach yourself a skill that will be helpful. We need to start creating small, self-sufficient communities. That's the only way that we can get out of their power. They control us with money. They control us with food. We need to start creating small, self-sufficient communities, folks. Grow your own food, raise your own fruits and vegetables, or learn a skill on how to make things that are useful to others that you can use for barter or survival. We need to go back to old school, folks. It's the only way we're going to survive this war. It's the only way we're going to survive this war. So God bless you all. I love you. Godspeed. Get to work and garden. Thank you. Like, share, and subscribe. If you are able, you like my work, and you'd like to support me or give me a hand, shoot me an email. If I don't respond, just leave me a comment and make sure I know I check all the right folders it could have been weaved into and not caught as spam. So, anyhow, bless you guys. Y'all come back now, you hear? Bye.